Have you ever spent an afternoon reading in a coffee shop? It might surprise you to learn that reading in coffee shops is a tradition that dates back to the earliest coffee houses in early modern England, where reading, news sharing, and of course coffee drinking were key activities. Hi, my name is Bose. I have an MA in Early Modern English History, and on this channel we talk about history you don't learn about in school. Today we're going to discuss 5 weird facts about the early modern English coffee house. Fact number 1. The establishment of the first English coffee house. In 1650, a man named Jacob established the first English coffee house in Oxford. This was closely followed in 1653 by a man named Pasquier Rousset, who established the first coffee house in London that we know of in St. Michael's Street, which you can still go and visit today, although I don't think it is a coffee house anymore. Please note that I said that these were the first English coffee houses. The tradition of the coffee house actually stems from, we think, the Ottoman Empire, where merchants and traders would meet and discuss trade over coffee and share news with one of each other. This tradition slowly spread across Western Europe, and it quickly became popular after these initial coffee shops in England and other countries opened. Its popularity is shown in the fact that by 1663, 13 years after Jacob's first coffee house in England, there were 83 coffee houses in London alone. Coffee drinking in coffee houses was incredibly popular in England because it was a non-alcoholic beverage, and there was a sense of respectability about it because it was not associated with the immoral behaviour and drunkenness that taverns and alehouses had become associated with at the time. So coffee houses became a respectable alternative for the middling and upper sort in the early modern England. When discussing the rise in popularity of coffee and coffee houses in England, it's vital that we note that the increased demand for coffee in Europe directly contributed to the expansion of the Atlantic slave trade. European imperialists established coffee plantations in the Americas and Caribbean to meet the growing demand for coffee in Europe by using slave labour. By the 1760s, the enslaved people of Saint-Domingue produced more than half of the world's supply of coffee. Change did occur during the Enlightenment and 19th century, but it is important to remember the legacy of coffee's impact on the slave trade. Fact number 2. The penny universities. Even the first coffee houses in England were strongly connected with ideas of news sharing and learning. This is largely because of the layout of a coffee house, where men would sit at long tables that ran down the centre of the coffee house, allowing people to easily discuss ideas and read newspapers and even gossip with people that they might not normally have come into contact with. The spread of news was so prolific in coffee houses that in 1709, the Tatler newspaper was founded to dispense the news and gossip heard in the local coffee houses. And it wasn't the only newspaper established for this purpose either. The association with news and learning and coffee houses became so strong that coffee houses actually became nicknamed penny universities. Factor number 3. Banned by the king. This association of coffee houses with learning and the spreading of news and ideas greatly displeased the king and his ministers. And in 1675, King Charles II and his ministers actually tried to ban coffee houses. This is because they said that they had dangerous and evil effects on the population, and they had become a breeding ground for plots against the monarchy and ruling authorities of England at the time by spreading misinformation. However, 2 days before the ban could occur, it was rescinded, allowing the English coffee shop to survive. Although King Charles II was not the only monarch to dislike the coffee houses. Later, during the reign of Queen Mary, London magistrates would round up excessive coffee house users and began prosecuting them for spreading fake information which they perceived was dangerous to the wider population. Fact number 4. banned by the universities. The monarchs were not the only people who disliked the coffee houses and their spread of information. Both the University of Oxford and Cambridge passed statutes and regulations trying to limit their students' access to coffee houses in the late 17th and early 18th centuries. The University of Cambridge went so far that in 1663, the Vice-Chancellor of the university said that he would only license coffee houses in Cambridge if the coffee houses agreed to only allow students who had tutors present with them access to the coffee houses. It was believed that the tutor could then manage the information that the student heard in the coffee house, avoiding them from being corrupted by misinformation. This really shows the ruling authority's fear of information spread in the coffee houses and shows its power as a news outlet in early modern England. Fact number 5. No women allowed. You might have guessed this from the language that I've used in this video, but the coffee houses were a very masculine coded space, and many coffee houses outright banned women from entering as customers or heavily frowned upon it. Women, however, were allowed to work in coffee houses as either servants or female family members of the male owners, such as wives and daughters, and it would not be uncommon to find a wife managing the coffee house from the counter. Some women did actually run coffee houses though. However, this was entirely dependent on the conditions of the local ruling authorities in England, the types of women who could run coffee houses. Primarily, if a woman wanted to run a coffee house, she had to be unmarried and a widow, as widows had the greatest economic and business rights in early modern England, although a spinster who had passed her childbearing years could also have run a coffee house quite successfully. Women were not socially accepted into the coffee house as customers though until the 19th century, and even in the 19th century the coffee house was still a very masculine coded space, so women's presence was not always encouraged and was often still outright banned. Today we have looked at 5 weird facts about the early modern English coffee houses, and we've really seen the importance of the coffee house to the sharing of information and news in England. If you would like to learn some more really random, really interesting history, make sure you come back next week for another video on a random historical topic. That's all for now. Thank you for watching. Bye!